Welcome to TEDMED Conversations, where medicine, science, and the human experience meet the ideas shaping our future. In 2014, Diana Nyad returned to the TEDMED stage, this time having completed the feat she once declared she would achieve, the 110-mile swim from Cuba to Florida. At age 64, after 4 failed attempts and more than 30 years since her first try, she completed the crossing. Battling the Gulf Stream and venomous box jellyfish, she finished what once seemed unreachable. Her talk, No Shortcuts to Victory, is not a story about toughness alone. It is about preparation, persistence, and the decision to return to a dream long after most people would have let it go. Hosted by Kelly Thomas, TEDMED's Director of Scientific Content, Diana dives beneath the headline. What does resilience actually require? And what separates bravado from readiness? This is a conversation about endurance, not just in the body, but in judgment, about failure that refines rather than defeats, and about what it truly means to go onward. This is TEDMED Conversations.
Welcome, Diana Nyad. Thank you so much for taking time to talk to us today about your journey and what we can learn about the power of the human spirit and resilience and all the incredible experiences and challenges you've overcome that teach us such lifelong inspiring lessons. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you. No, it's my pleasure. And you know what, Kelly, before we even get started, I don't know if you're aware of this, but I was part of a study, sometime in the last 10 years, which was done by both Harvard and University of San Diego together. And their idea was to see if all human beings, or if it's more people who are Navy SEALs, or people who are trained to dig down and face fear without it overcoming them. But as you went through the tests, you're in this chamber and you're looking at images, very easy tests, and they start restricting your oxygen when you don't know it. So occasionally, from the outside, they squeeze on your tube. You can look it up, but I beat all those Navy SEALs and all those Army Rangers. I was at the top at the end, and I said, "What does this really prove? Does this prove that I should be underwater setting grenades?" You know, I don't know if it proved much, but I thought I'd tell you if you want to look up that study, it's out there somewhere.
I did not know about that study, but I think that's really interesting. And maybe you were a Buddhist monk in a prior life because they're so good at staying calm. I would imagine that that has something to do with all the training you did to swim from Cuba to Florida and all the other long distance training that you did, because I was a swimmer growing up, nothing as serious as you are, but you have to control your breathing in high stress situations. What did that feel like when you were in the water and you started? Were there any moments where you panicked and you had to rely on that slow breathing? Because I'm sure that helps you in that study if those instances occurred.
The only true moment of panic, I had two actually, but the most recent one of recent years was being stung by that swarm of box jellyfish. They take your spinal cord and paralyze it. It's the most potent venom of any animal on earth. There's no snake, there's no spider that can kill as instantly as a particular species of the box. Not all of them, but some of them produce what they call the Irukandji syndrome. And when I was hit by that, first of all, our team is well researched. We know everything that's out there. We've been training for hundreds of hours out there. I've been stung by many jellyfish, many not pleasant, but nobody has ever died from the Portuguese men of war sting. Nobody. Whereas many have died from the box jellyfish sting, that particular species. And when I was hit hard, I didn't know what it was. The doctors on board had no idea what it was. I was losing my breath. I was losing control over my spine, my ability to use my arms. And I wouldn't say I was panicked, but I was shocked. I was in a state of, what is this? But there was something about the spirit that was even driving below the shock of, you keep going. It doesn't matter what happened. It doesn't matter if you don't know why it happened. Just keep going. Bring up the left arm. Bring up the right arm. So both of those were working at the same time. Yeah.
that's a real life experience that you had. And I will look at the study, but I imagine that other people that were being tested maybe have been in training, but never had that real life experience where they had to control their emotions and continue on. And that's something that you learn through life when you have these little moments. But yours with the jellyfish, that's probably on a scale of 1 to 10, a 12 of how
Yeah.
much you have to stay calm and use your resilience to keep going. It's incredible.
We talked with a couple of the Navy SEALs were around who were getting tested about the same time as I was, so we were hanging out together, and they said, "Listen, we do lots of training. We're down in the Keys, we go over to Japan, and we may have to say, 'Okay, my job is underwater without a tank. I'm being stealth. I've got to swim underwater some 75 meters over to that area and detonate a bomb, and then take a breath and get under and swim underwater all the way back.'" Well, in training, I can work up to that. I can swim 75 yards underwater twice in a row with a very little breath in between, but my pulse isn't pounding. I'm not in wartime where I'm supposed to be training for this. So, I think it's the same. That's what I said to the testers when I got done. I said, there was no fear involved to be in that machine. There was no adrenaline flow, happening. I was just motivated by wanting to win. But when you're in a real life situation, now your body, your shock is coming to the forefront and your brain is being challenged to somehow stay calm and somehow think your way through this thing and will your way through this thing rather than just, well, this is a test and I'm not feeling anything. There's no danger, but I'll see if I can get through it. That's a very different scenario.
When you were training, did you enter situations like that where you were trying to make yourself feel stress while you were training up for the full swim so that you would better manage yourself if you were stressed out during it?
Well, you could say yes and no. I mean, not the stress like the box jellyfish. Had we even known that those animals were in those waters, they were usually Southern Ocean animals. And now with global warming, they've moved up into equatorial waters. So they're now proliferating all over the world. But, it's not like you can go sting yourself with those because the chances are you're going to die in experiment.
Not worth
Yeah.
it.
Like you're asking, people say, well, how in the world could you get your body ready to swim for some 2.5, 3 nonstop days? By the way, at a pretty good pace, because you've got a whole ocean current problem in that Cuba-to-Florida swim. It's the reason it's called the most difficult swim in the world. You're going north, and the Gulf Stream is going east directly. And that Gulf Stream is going 3 times your speed. So you've got people on the boat, navigators and whatnot, to try to make a configuration for that. But the only way to really prepare for what I'm going to go through mentally and physically is to do many, many hours. So that if somebody says to me, we're in the Cuba swim, oh my gosh, you've been going forever, but you know what? We just figured it out. You've got at least, and that's if nothing bad happens, you've got at least 15 more hours and you've already done 40. And I say to myself, I've done 1,000 15-hour swims. I know what those shoulders feel like. I know what the will feels like, and we can do it. So it's like with any sport, if you don't put in that time, it's not a matter of mind over matter. Ed Viestiers is a friend of mine, one of the great climbers, and has climbed Mount Everest more than anyone without bottled oxygen. And Ed says that when he's going up toward the summit, and maybe he's leading a group who this is their first Everest summit, so they're so excited and they've tried for 10 years and they've been turned back time after time and they can see the summit. It's only half day away, but they get word on the radio that a 90-mile-an-hour wind is coming and it's coming fairly quickly. It's going to be here in a couple of hours. You don't say, I'm tough. I can withstand a 90-mile-an-hour wind. It's mind over matter. I'm going to get to the top. No, you're going to be blown off the face of that mountain. So you get real, you turn around and you go down. I guess I'm trying to say that there's certain circumstances where if Mother Nature is that powerful and is acting on steroids out there, then it's not your day. You have to unfortunately train a whole other year and get back out there. But I feel that we put in so many hundreds of hours that, except for the surprise of that box jellyfish, we were ready for anything.
Mhm. Yeah, that's incredible. Did you feel that when you started, that confidence
Yeah.
because of your training? And I feel like that's so critical to building resilience, whether it be in sport or giving a presentation in front of a whole group of people. That practice and repetition and knowing that you tested yourself as best you can, that you feel like you're ready for whatever might get thrown your way, barring a 90-mile-an-hour wind that's going to knock you off a mountain.
The 4 times that I failed in the Cuba swim, each time I stood on that shore in Havana and I gave my team, my dedicated team, none of them having received a cent for putting in all the time. They did this out of loyalty, out of friendship. They did it out of wanting to make history themselves and be part of something novel and exciting to show the world that you can chase your dreams. And I gave them a little talk, the exact same talk 4 times. And I said, I will not let you down. Mother Nature might beat us again, like she's beaten us before. And we've been out there 51 hours this time, 48 hours this time, 42 hours this time. And things have conspired to not let us across, not our preparation and not our will. So I'm standing in front of you right now, my team. We call them the Extreme Dream Team. And I said, you guys, I will never put up my hand and say, I didn't train hard enough. I've bitten off more than I can chew. This is bigger than any human being. I will not give up. If Mother Nature beats us, that's one thing. We have to swallow our pride and go back and train again. But I won't be the one. But I will admit to you that on the 5th time up there, I gave that same speech to the team. And then I turned and I looked out at the horizon and I thought, Kelly, that horizon, I know this can't be scientifically true, but that horizon looks a lot farther away than it ever has looked before. And we were surprised by the box jellyfish. Could there be some surprise that our dedicated team, is not ready for? So that was the time that I just had, you just put your head down and you stroke and don't be surprised if bad stuff comes our way.
Hmm. Yeah, that's incredible. I'm in awe that you tried this 5 times,
Yeah,
and the last attempt was you were 64.
before, yeah.
What caused you to have that self-reflection at 64? And you said you asked yourself if you were a person you could admire. Was there something that triggered that to go back to that Cuba swim with your dedicated team with whom you did that together as a team? But why then? Why 64?
It started at 60, then I failed those few times more. I had failed back at age 28 and then let it go, had a career in sports broadcasting and sports journalism. And you're right, there were events that triggered wanting to go back and chase that holy grail, the Cuba swim, that many swimmers had tried. Good swimmers, fast, strong, male, female. It's a monstrous crossing, not because of just the sheer distance, but because of all the elements that are happening out there, especially that Gulf Stream current. But one thing that happened as I was turning 60 was already, even before my mom died that year, I was feeling a tremendous malaise. I was a sportscaster. People would die to have that career, traveling to Olympic Games and the Tour de France and the New York City Marathon. And I'm watching the best in the world pursue their excellence in all these different sports. And then on the other hand, by age 60, still fit, still feeling I've got a lot of gumption, I wasn't a doer anymore. I was sitting back, observing and speaking and telling stories. Nothing's wrong with that. That can be a great career unto itself. That's who I am now, retired again. But at that time, still feeling young enough and feisty enough at 60, I was feeling like, am I really going to let that dream die? Am I never going to go back and chase that dream? And then my mom died, and she was 82, and we're all different. We have different genetics and whatnot. But I started thinking, could it possibly be that in a scant 22 years, I'll be gone like my mom? I better get thinking. And then I met Christopher Reeve. Chris had had his accident on his horse. He was now a quadriplegic when I knew him, and he was very big on the subject of regrets. Everyone he would come across, the janitor might be coming down the hall, just getting the floor swept up, and he'd stop him to say, what do you want to do? Don't leave it too late. You have no idea what banana peel you might slip on tonight and be in this ventilator like me and not able to do anything anymore, physically anyway. So, it really impressed me being around him. I wanted to cry when I was around him as to how much he had lost, but I made sure not to because he wasn't crying. But it affected me deeply because he would say to me, You told me that you had this dream. You told me that you said to yourself when you were 16 years old that you would never let a day of your life go by unless you lived it until you couldn't live it a fingernail better. I've heard that story about you, he said. Is that the way you've been living your life? Have you kept your promise to yourself? And I said, well, not even my family, not even my partner is pressing me on that like you are, Chris. And I got a hold of him a few days later and I said, no, I have not kept my promise to myself. I've not been living every day, so I just can't live it a fingernail better. But Chris, you're moving me. You're making me get up and think I'm going to chase that big life and that big Cuba swim dream again. Because Kelly, the earth is blue and there are a lot of places to swim. And people every single day of the year, that sport, open water swimming, has grown. It's kind of boomed. And we could find someone swimming some stretch of the Straits of Gibraltar or the Irish Sea or the Sea of Japan every single day today. And that's no exaggeration. And I just thought the Cuba swim isn't for me in that category of all the other glorious swims and swims that take tremendous heart and training, and it's a grueling sport. But for me, Cuba, because of personal reasons and because it had never been done, was in a different category. It wasn't a matter of getting my name in the record book again or putting another notch in the endurance belt for me. That was to chase every fiber of potential, mental, physical, emotional. And so it was a big, big bar, the Cuba swim, in much more ways than just an athletic record.
Wow. I didn't realize that Christopher Reeves had inspired that too, that reigniting of your drive. People say, I'm never going to give up often, but many people do when it's something this huge, swimming from Cuba to Florida.
I have the courage, let's say, to fail. And I'd rather be up here chasing something big and not making it and finding out who I am, inspiring people around me to set their bars high too. So I do think that that's just part of my nature.
That's one of the reasons that I love being an adult athlete is that if I lose a match when now with the injury or I'm training all around that so I can stay fit, I'm in my 40s so that I can compete at a high level. And I feel like the kids learn from that too. That
Oh, they
I'm
do.
working really hard and I love that. And I feel like your story is so inspiring to kids, adults, any age, because you truly just you chased your dream, you never gave up, and it's such an inspiration.
Thank you. Parents say to me all the time. It's mostly men about their sons for some reason. It's still the sports cliche, but men will come up to me and say, my son is 14 and he loves the triathlon, but he just hates the discipline it takes to swim. Most swimming practices, you get up at 4:30 in the morning, whereas he loves the cycling, he loves the running, and he's pretty tough. He'll go out and go through some pain to get through those workouts. But how can I make him get up at 4:30 in the morning? And I said, I'm not a parent. But as far as I know, you don't make your kids do anything that's tough. They have to want to. I said, so why don't you do it by example? Why don't you get up at 4:30 in the morning, go to the pool with him, you swim in a different lane while he's going with the kids. Both of you take your shower, go out and get a little breakfast together. So it's a real father-son thing, but you're showing him that you enjoy getting up before the sunrise. It makes you feel superior. And you love getting to the pool. And even though you're cold, you get in and you work up your body temperature. And when you get out, you feel like $1,000,000. You feel proud of yourself. Why don't you show him instead of waking him up, saying you get up and go to swim practice and then you go back to sleep and have your coffee? It sounds like you, especially with your scientific career, with your athletic career, that you are a shining example to your kids.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind of you.
I've been in love with tennis my whole life. I grew up in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and I just was honored 2 weeks ago with an historical marker from the state of Florida. And Chris Everett, the tennis legend, whom I grew up with in Fort Lauderdale, came to unveil the marker and whatnot. But I told Chris, I said, Chris, I've always been in love with tennis, but because of many things, my life and living in New York City and whatnot, I didn't take it up till I was 68. So Kelly, you can imagine you're saying, oh, well, I'm in my 40s already. And I took it up at age 68. Now, how good am I going to be? Let's get realistic. But I want to be whatever my potential is. It's not to beat that person or get ranked that at the club. It's, am I improving? And is that slice backhand a beautiful thing? Am I going to pursue the best I can be at this age? That's good enough for me if I can get there, you know? What's your injury, by the way?
ACL, and my surgeon also thinks that it's a meniscus repair on
Oh,
one side, which is just gonna make the recovery initially a lot more difficult because of the weight bearing initially.
yeah.
And, I've gone through as an athlete as a kid, and I ran for many years when we lived in Manhattan, ran the marathon, injuries with that, a little stuff though. And
Yeah.
so I think mentally, this one, looking at that long recovery, I know I'm going to feel really good before the surgery. And I'm going to willingly go under the knife because I can't play tennis again with this injury. And that's just not acceptable to me, the community, the whole, not just because I like to get the exercise. I love the sport. I love, like you said, is the slice backhand getting better. Tennis, there's always room for improvement. I play doubles now. I don't play singles anymore because I just love being out there with somebody else. I enjoy that community. And you have talked about that too, like your team and the community that helped you keep going. And do you think that without that team, you wouldn't have gone back for that fifth attempt?
No, I think it was one of the big things when people say, "Why in the world could you do something this difficult at the age of 64 when you couldn't even do it when you were in your prime at 28?" Well, I tend to argue, what is your prime? Now, it's true if you're a 100-meter sprinter or if you're a professional tennis player, let's just say John McEnroe wanted to play again now in his 60s, I would vote against him being able to stay up with Sinner and, Alcaraz and these young studs who have young spring-like legs. But in a sport like mountain climbing or long distance, really ultra marathon running and marathon swimming, et cetera, now it's more a matter of how much pain can you tolerate? How much pain can your brain take in and keep under control? How ready can you get those shoulders? How many hundreds of hours are you willing to put in so that 60 seem like nothing to you? I say that my team and my age were even better for this particular event when I was 64, because when I was 28, I just give you a small example. I'd be swimming and Bonnie wasn't there then. That's my current trainer. And the trainer at that time would hand me a drink. You're not allowed to touch the boat, but you come in, you can reach out and grab a camelback hose, or you can grab an actual cup or a sandwich, whatever it is you're going to grab. So this person handed me a cup. I'm out in a really big sea. And that's what happened in 78. And that's why we didn't make it. Huge 8 to 10 foot swells. You're not going anywhere fast anymore. We almost quit several times and we thought maybe the weather will calm down. Let's wait it out. Keep swimming through the heavy seas. So I come in to get a drink. This person hands me the drink with the opening at the far end away from my mouth. So now I'm in salt water coming into the cup. I'm trying to kick my legs to keep the cup above and then trying to get a couple sips to get the sustenance. And I read her the riot act. I said, "Are you kidding me? You can't take the time, the precision to make sure that that cup is faced around to make it easy for me? Are you kidding me? You're fired. You're out. I don't wanna see you again for the rest of this swim." And I was more like that, like, "I'm doing this, you're not doing this." By the time I got in my 60s, life in general, I was like, "I'm not in this alone, and I'm not even in this life, in this swim. I've got a broader perspective of gratitude and appreciation and patience." And so, and by the way, this next team, they would never hand me a cup, facing the wrong way. But if there was a little error, we're just simpatico with each other. And I am absolutely certain when I make this statement, Kelly, that I never would have reached that other shore without that team. Never.
Mhm. Yeah, that's incredible.
And by the way, Bonnie is a beautiful tennis player. She played at UConn, and then she was ranked number 3 in the world on the pro racquetball tour. So she's in her 70s now, and she just had a foot surgery 2 years ago that kept her off the court for 14 months. And she was despondent. She said, "I'll never play tennis again." But she did all the surgery right, all the rehab right, didn't go back too soon, really got it ready, and she's playing again at the exact level she was at. So you're gonna get there.
Oh, that's really heartwarming to hear that, and you would absolutely understand this as as an athlete when you hear that and they're like, don't rush it. You're going to feel like you can do it, but you shouldn't because the tissue's got to repair and you can't see it. You can't feel it because it feels good when you're just walking around. Did you have any moments when you were swimming where you really like felt like your body, I can imagine the pain you were going through, that you couldn't take it anymore?
No. I think that once you start something that big, once you make the contract with yourself, that no matter what happens, if you get ready, if you prepare properly over the months and the years, you just say to yourself, I don't care what pain I feel in the right shoulder, which you can after all those hundreds of thousands of repetitions. And maybe if the waves are somewhat big, now that right shoulder for me, I breathe on the left, is slamming in a little bit harder on every wave. You can throw up violently because of the saltwater exposure, because of the duress that you're under as you're pressing hard to cross that current. But I made the contract with myself when I was 60 and started coming back toward this. I thought, you're either going to do this without complaint, without any shock. If something happens that you didn't expect, you are going to plow through. You're going to bring that left arm up again and again and again. And that doesn't mean that sometimes Bonnie wouldn't have to help me if she could see my will was flagging a little bit. And the will usually flags as the body flags. And that's where Bonnie comes in. I was in a training swim in St. Martin. We train down there largely because there are no jellyfish and no dangerous sharks. So we could go out for hours. We could go out for 24 hours and swim all over creation, swim down to St. Bart's and back and the whole thing and never worry about the animals, just the weather. And I was really having trouble. It was a windy, windy day. We were doing a 24-hour. I got to 2 in the morning. We had started at 9. So there's 7 hours left, and I guess I was inefficiently splashing around and not making forward progress, and Bonnie blew the whistle, and she said, "I'm asking you if you can take 5 strong strokes, not this flailing stuff. Do you have it in you? Do you have 5 more strokes in you?" And I was childlike, and I said, "I think I do." She said, "Let me see it, but they gotta be strong. If they're not strong, then you know what? I'm blowing the whistle, we're getting out. It's a pretty good swim already, but it's not 24 hours. It's not what we said we were gonna do. Let me see 5 strong strokes." So I took 5 strong strokes, I did it, and I looked up to her, and I thought I was gonna get a celebration, and she had her hand up like this. 5 more. And so I did 5 more, and she got me all the way to sunrise,
Oh,
by
wow.
going 5 strokes at a time, 5 strokes at a time, and then I started to believe again, and the body started to come back again. So you can hit a low, and you gotta figure out whether your buddy with you or whether you've got it inside you to somehow work around and get back up. It's a, metaphor of life itself.
Mhm.
Did you ever meet a 90-year-old who said, "You know, the whole thing, it was just a bowl of cherries. I never had a problem."
No, I did not.
We go down into valleys and we come back up on the mountaintops, and that's what we do our whole lives. So the
Mm,
swims are quite a metaphor for that.
absolutely. Wow, that's an incredible, incredible story. You actually, when we emailed initially, you signed your email onwards.
Yeah.
And I love that idea, like onwards, no matter what, onwards.
Yeah, there's so many different words or catchphrases that express the resilience that you're getting at today. One of them is never ever give up. Another is, let's find a way. The last way didn't work. Let's find the way this time. And the simple one is onward. And people have often said to me, Hillary Clinton uses onward at the end of her letters, and many people do. But someone said to me, where did you come up with that phrase? I said, come up with it. I think Napoleon and Winston Churchill used onward. Believe me, I didn't originate onward, but it does connote, doesn't it? You got to have this whole complicated knee operation, and you could say, I don't want to go through that, but you want to play tennis again. So you're going to go onward. You're going to research it, get the right surgeon, do the right rehab. And after all, you keep in mind, what is my goal? I just want to play again. I'm not getting ready for junior Wimbledon or, something else. And so the longer, you really settle into healing that knee, you will get back. So you get real. And then on the other hand, you march onward. Swimming is such a good, sort of physical metaphor for it. You take that next stroke. I'm going to go onward toward that other shore, whatever that other shore is for you.
That's so true and really resonates with me, especially now, but I think that resonates with anyone. It really struck me when I read Onward. I hadn't seen that as a sign off in an email before, and it was actually acutely important because I had just gotten my MRI results that day, and so I was still processing the shock of I thought the injury wasn't as bad as it was, so it did make me feel a lot better, and you didn't know that you were giving that to me when you responded, which I was already so excited that we were gonna sit down for this conversation, and then I read the end, I was like, "You're right, onward, like, we
Yeah,
can do this."
yeah. And then, you have to have the perspective that you're lucky. You're in an era where these surgeons are brilliant. All these repairs and new parts that they know about and the way to recover from these things are even just compared to 10 years ago are brilliant. So you're going to go onward back onto that tennis court. You are.
And then we can meet up and play tennis and get
Oh,
Bonnie out
boy.
too.
Love that. Well, you'd have to be patient with me, I'm sure.
No pressure, no expectation. As long as you don't go ask me to swim 20 miles too.
No skin.
Oh, thank you, Diana. Really so lovely to speak to you, and we appreciate it, TEDMED, and I'm so excited to hear about your new ventures coming up, and we wish you the best
Thank
of
you.
luck.
Thanks very much. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.